Hello and welcome to the news on NTA International. I am Charles Alpha. My sign language interpreter is Taiwo Azama. You can watch this news on Vision TV 24/7 and other social media platforms displayed on your screen. But first, the headlines. President Tinubu sues for unity for build a viral nation as Muslims mark end of the Ramadan fast. United Nations mark the International Day of Reflection on the 1994 genocide in Rwanda. And political leaders agree to a 22-month interim presidential council to restore order in Haiti. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu felicitates with the Muslim community at Eid al-Fitr. That signifies the end of Ramadan, a hallowed season which reflects total submission to God Almighty and to His command of sacrifice and service to humankind. The President greets the Muslim faithful in Nigeria and across the world, praying that their supplications and sacrifices this season and even after will receive fitting rewards from Almighty Allah. As he emphasized recently during an iftar with Nigerian leaders of thoughts and conscience, President Tinubu appeals to all citizens to come together and dedicate themselves to the noble, to the praise that the blessing and the joys of the seasons abide with adherents always, while wishing Nigerians happy Eid al-Fitr celebration. The President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, congratulates Muslims for the successful end of the Ramadan fast and wishes them Eid Mubarak as they celebrate the feast of Eid al-Fitr. Akpabio, in a congratulatory message, rejoices with all the Muslims in Nigeria as they join their counterparts in other parts of the world to celebrate. He urges Muslims to continue to offer prayers for peace, unity, and prosperity of Nigeria, saying Islam is a religion of peace, and as adherents go to God in prayer with sincerity, He will surely answer. Akpabio asks Muslims to pray for leaders as well as for peace and unity of the country to overcome current challenges. And meanwhile, the Deputy President of the Senate, Barau Jibrin, urges faithful to sustain and reflect lessons of Ramadan in their daily lives. He appeals to Nigerians, irrespective of differences, to continue to pray for the growth and development of the country, pointing out that President Tinubu has good intentions for the nation. Now, the federal government has approved Thursday, 11th April 2024 as an additional public holiday to celebrate this year's Eid al-Fitr. In a statement, the Minister of Interior, Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo, congratulated the Muslim community for a successful completion of a month of spiritual rejuvenation. He reiterates President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's firm commitment to providing a safe and prosperous Nigeria for all to thrive. In another development, the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, has tasked the Assistant Inspectors General of Police, Commissioners of Police and Tactical Commanders across the 36 states, as well as the Federal Capital Territory, to intensify security measures during and after the Eid al-Fitr celebration. A statement by the force indicates that supervisory AIGs and their CPs have been directed to ensure thorough deployment of officers and resources to critical locations, particularly Eid praying grounds and recreational centers, to instill confidence among citizens and fund seekers. The statement adds that the IGP also directs comprehensive assessment of areas prone to threats, rigorous stop and search procedures, and use of other anti-crime strategies to maintain peace and public safety. Now, Nigerian youth must shun materialism and embrace a new identity that aligns with the will of God to birth a new Nigeria. This was the message of the Primate Church of Nigeria, Anglican Church, Communion Most Reverend Henry Ndukuba, to the Joshua Generation International Youth Conference in Abuja. Victor Azu reports.
It's the fourth edition of the Joshua Generation International Youth Conference of the Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion. A new generation of Nigerians is being groomed here to lean on the teachings of Jesus Christ and transform themselves and the nation. In principle, Primate of the Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion, Most Reverend Henry Ndukuba, says the change must begin with the individual to make it easier to impact society.
We want to encourage the young people of our nation not to give up. Let them hold on to the Lord. There is still much more that God wants to do in and through them.
Cameroonian professor and keynote speaker Victor Mbariga and other guests want the youths to look inwards and take their rightful place in the development of the nation and indeed the African continent.
Where they are telling us we lack courage, we lack the power to move forward, whether in the church or as a nation, you will be there to be our David who killed Goliath.
We don't lack technology. The technologies are here. The question is, how do we use it?
This year's event with the theme, My Identity, attracted more than 20,000 participants from across the world. In Abuja, Victor Azu, NTA.
Now, the Nigerian Center for Disease Control and Prevention, NCDC, says it has deployed a national rapid response team to Isak local government area of Sokoto State following reported cases of children presenting with symptoms which include abdominal distension. And as CDC Director General Olajide Idris at an engagement with journalists in Abuja is expecting the team to unravel the root cause of the incident, which is being described as an illness of unknown origin.
There's a cause for Allah because people are dying. One, people are ill. So even if we want death, we should be worried. But we don't want to, like when you say it's not of infectious origin, because now they spread quickly. So there's no cause for alarm for that. You understand me? But we also need to find out what is causing this illness. Suspicion that this might be related to some activities within the communities. Because like mining activities, you know, in mining they use all sorts of chemicals to extract these things. Some of this might be injurious to the health of people. And again, you know, the use of children in this kind of places. So we don't have a definite diagnosis, but others have been taken, and that's why now we're bringing other laboratories like NIPRID, NAFDAC. So as of now, there is no definitive diagnosis. Most of the cases that in the teaching hospital are being treated symptomatically, and like Riley said, one or two of them are responding to treatment. I mean, if you know, you reduce the treatment, but you don't have a definitive cause.
The present administration is committed to changing the face of the health sector for better health service to Nigerians, irrespective of location or status. Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Mohammed Ali Pate, said this at the Policy Dialogue and Town Hall meeting to commemorate this year's World Health Day in Nigeria. Basi, type and reports.
Really an opportunity to turn the lens and look at health as really a human right issue, where a child missing a vaccination, it's a human right issue and should be treated as such. A mother coming to give birth, dying in hospital, it's a human right violation.
Deliberations, suggestions, arguments and counter-arguments, all aimed at ensuring better health outcomes for Nigerians in the coming years.
Gives us the right to access health facilities and services.
Access to good quality basic health care is the right of Nigerians, and the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is taking that very seriously.
With the right policy, with the right fund available for health, and improving of healthcare delivery in Nigeria and health sector, we are sure going to have many of the Nigerians that have left the shore of Nigeria to come back and practice here in Nigeria.
The Minister of Health, represented by the Permanent Secretary, revealed government intention for effective, equitable, and quality health system, and to unlock the value chain and health security for all Nigerians.
Today, as we celebrate My Health, My Rights, which is the theme for the 2024 Universal Health Day, one thing we assure Nigerians is that you are going to see improvements in the health sector through quality care service. You are going to see upgrade in infrastructure. We are working towards reducing the brain drain and turning it into brain gain.
Sustainability of finances for health interventions also came to the fore at the forum. Basi Taima, NTA News.
Elsewhere, the African Development Bank, through its Youth Entrepreneurship and Innovation Multi-Donor Trust Fund, has approved a $999,000 grant to support an initiative to foster green jobs for women, youth, and people with disabilities. The Strengthening Women, Youth, and People with Disabilities Micro-Entrepreneurship for Green Jobs and Natural Resources Micro-Green project aims to foster inclusive economic growth by providing up to 500 green jobs opportunities and business development services to marginalized groups in Ghana and Senegal. The target reach for each group includes women, youth, and people with disabilities engaged in managing natural resources sectors such as agroforestry, fisheries, and biodiversity. The microgreen project, to be implemented over 2 years, will empower beneficiaries with entrepreneurship capabilities and business skills, at least 1,000 youth aged 15 to 35 years, with female youth leading 60%, people with disabilities need 10%, and other youth in both countries 30%. Now, Rwandan President Paul Kagame said he was concerned about what he sees as the failure of the United States to characterize the 1994 massacres as a genocide against the country's minority Tutsi. Francis Dojo reports that his comments came after U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, in a post on social platform X, failed to specify that the Tutsi ethnic group was targeted.
Many Rwandans have criticized Blinken's comment on Sunday, which read, "We mourn the many thousands of Tutsis, Hutus, Was, and others whose lives were lost during 100 days of unspeakable violence." 7th April marks the start, 30 years ago, of a 100-day killings by extremists from the Hutu ethnic group, in which members of the Tutsi minority and Hutu moderates were slaughtered. Kagame said he believed he would reach an agreement with U.S. authorities for them not to voice any criticism during the period of the anniversary. Rwandan authorities say any ambiguity on who the genocide victims were is an attempt to distort history and disrespect the memory of the victims.
And there are 365 days in a year. Give us that day of 7th of April, commemorate with us, and then you can have the rest 364 days blaming us every day for everything you don't like about us.
Questions over how to mark the genocide stems from allegations that the Rwandan Patriotic Front militia, led by Kagame, which stopped the massacres and has ruled Rwanda unchallenged since 1994, carried out its own revenge killings during and after the genocide. Reports say Kagame is under growing pressure over Rwanda's military involvement in eastern Congo, where tensions have flared recently as the two countries' leaders accuse each other of supporting armed groups. United Nations experts said they had solid evidence that members of Rwanda's armed forces were conducting operations there in support of M23, whose rebellion has caused the displacement of hundreds of thousands of people in Congo's North Kivu province. President Kagame said the M23 are fighting for the rights of Congolese Tutsis, with at least 100,000 of them now seeking refuge in Rwanda after fleeing attacks in eastern Congo. Francis Udojo, NT News.
You're still watching the news on NTA International. We'll take a break now. More reports ahead. Please to stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. And still on the 1994 genocide, 1 million Rwandans killed in 100 days by fellow Rwandans has become the hallmark of the infamous genocide in Africa. 30 years later, the United Nations marks the International Day of Reflection on the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda at an event organized by the United Nations office in Nairobi.
Commemorated at the UN office in Nairobi, the event observed a candlelight session, minute of silence in honor of victims, screening of a short film tracing the roots of the genocide and testimonies from survivors who recount how neighbors killed neighbors and families turned against one another as the world stood, watched, and did nothing to help. International Day of Reflection on the Genocide in Rwanda tells the story of a people on a long, hard journey to recovery, healing, and reconciliation. It echoes the Rwandan experience of progress across all sectors by creating a country that is safe, ambitious, and provides hope to all citizens. The genocide marks a period of loss that has birthed the spirit of determination, resilience, sacrifice, and rebirth as the people rise from the depths of despair to great hope. The theme for the 2024 commemoration of the International Day of Reflection on the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda is Remember, Unite, Renew. The United Nations General Assembly adopts Resolution A58-234, designating 7th April as the International Day of Reflection on the Genocide in Rwanda and encourages all member states, organizations of the United Nations system, and other relevant international organizations, as well as civil society organizations, to observe the International Day, including special observances and activities in memory of the victims of the genocide in Rwanda. Francis Udojo, NTA News.
Francis Udojo is also reporting that in Haiti, normalcy is gradually returning to Port-au-Prince after the political leaders agreed to form a 22-month interim presidential council to restore order to the Caribbean country troubled by gang violence.
Despite the persistent instability, business continues as usual in Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince. Reports say Haitian leaders have finalized a deal for a temporary government to steer the nation out of a gang-fueled chaos, but the details must first be approved by the outgoing authorities. Officials say members of the Transition Council sent their plan to the regional Caribbean body, CARICOM, late Sunday. The accord establishes a 9-member council, 7 voting members, and 2 observers representing political parties, the private sector, and civil society that will pave the way for presidential elections by early 2026. Its mandate will end on February 7, 2026, according to the agreement. The country's new authorities will replace outgoing Prime Minister Ariel Henry, who announced his resignation on March 11 after Haiti was plunged into deadly gang violence. A political official said the accord was presented late Sunday to CARICOM, which has been instrumental in negotiations over the island nation's last crisis. The council's first task will be to elect a prime minister who, in collaboration with the 9-member team, will form a government charged with leading the country until democratic, free, and credible elections can be held. Haiti has suffered years of political instability and crime, and no elections have been held since 2016. The situation has worsened since late February when armed gangs attacked police stations, prisons, and government headquarters and forced the shutdown of the port and airport in a spasm of anti-Henry violence. With the airport in Port-au-Prince closed, the Prime Minister has not returned to the country since he traveled to Kenya, seeking to secure Nairobi's lead in an international security mission to Haiti, sponsored by the United Nations. The transitional body establishes three priorities: security, constitutional and institutional reforms, and elections. The accord announced the creation of a National Security Council of Haitian experts who will oversee agreements on international security assistance, including the dispatch of the UN-backed mission. Francis Udojo, NT News.
From Haiti, we take you now to Tanzania, where 3 soldiers were killed and 3 others wounded when hostile mortar fire landed near the camp in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Southern African Development Community says they were part of a Southern African peacekeeping force deployed in December last year to help government troops battling M23 rebels in the ongoing conflict in eastern DRC. The force includes soldiers from regional military heavyweights South Africa, Tanzania, and Malawi. Reports also say the mortar attack took place during a ceremony to honor the dead at the community's headquarters in the provincial capital, Goma. The community also says a soldier from South Africa died in a hospital while being treated for unspecified health problems. The force suffered its first losses in mid-February when 2 South African soldiers were killed by mortars at a camp about 20 kilometers from the provincial capital, Goma. And our former South African President Jacob Zuma has won a court bid to overturn his disqualification from running for parliament in next month's election on the newly formed Okomto Sizwe party's ticket. The Electoral Courts overturned the Independent Electoral Commission's ruling based on Section 47 of the Constitution, which stipulates that a candidate cannot be elected to parliament or legislature if they have been convicted of a crime and sentenced without an option for a fine. The reversal of the decision to disqualify the former statesman means that he is eligible to contest the general election on May 29. The ruling opens up an avenue for Zuma to participate in the democratic process and pursue his political ambition to complete what he has described as his unfinished business at the union's buildings he voted into power. The decision is another setback to the ruling African National Congress efforts to stamp down support for the MKP, which opinions polls show is gaining popularity ahead of the May 29 votes. And back in Nigeria, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, has extended relief support to people with disabilities whose community was gutted by fire recently in Karimajiji village of the Federal Capital Territory. Director General of the agency, Zubeida Umar, who sympathized with the victims, said the agency will always promptly show concern and support to every vulnerable Nigerian who may be affected by any form of disaster across the country. Ilyasu Yakubu, that's us more.
It was indeed a double jeopardy for this category of people living with disabilities, and when fire ravaged their community, life became unbearable. And when the news of the tragedy got to the National Emergency Management Agency in NEMA, they swiftly made provisions to cater for the victims. Items delivered to them included household equipment, food, and non-food items. The beneficiaries commended the federal government and NEMA for the support.
We are saying thank you for the relief material for the resident of Karmajiji.
And we really appreciate, and we're going to give you 100%, and this support that you are giving us, I would like to urge so that we can decentralize it up to the states and other local government for our people to benefit.
The DG name said the agency is now well prepared to manage and mitigate disasters.
Persons living with disabilities do not deserve just pity. What they deserve is support to trigger and activate their latent capacities. As the saying goes, behind every disability, there are tremendous abilities.
She commended the Executive Secretary, National Commission for People Living with Disabilities, for thorough supervision of the distribution of the palliatives. The Executive Secretary of the Commission, Dr. David Lalu, appreciated NEMA for coming to the aid of the fire victims.
Thank you so very much for this huge support that we are seeing here today, that is going to the disability community, those who were affected in that fire incident in Karmajiji. We always appreciate NEMA for responding so swiftly and promptly for every request the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities continue to put forward.
It will be recalled that fire gutted Karmajiji village recently, and thousands of people living with disabilities were affected in the incident. In Abuja, Ilyasu Yakubu, NTA News.
And up next is our weather prospect. Well, this is where we end the news. Many thanks for watching. I am Charles Alpha. Taiwo Zoma has been our sign language interpreter.